I can't tell you how excited I am to have Dr. Robyn Pashby on Direction Not Perfection this afternoon. Well, my first introduction was through a YouTube video that went viral of Dr. Pashby's, and we will unpack that here today. But first, Dr. Pashby earned a dual track PhD in medical and clinical psychology with nearly 20 years of experience in clinical practice, often focused on issues related to eating, to weight, internalized weight bias, but also spanning the areas of anxiety and relational concerns. In addition to her clinical work, she is also deeply committed to the education of physicians, allied healthcare providers, on bias and advocating for respectful and weight inclusive care. Oh my goodness. Yes, please, on all of this, welcome, Dr.
Thank
Pashby.
you. Thank you. I'm glad
Yes.
to be here.
Yes. So much to talk about and so little time. So we're just diving right in.
Yes.
Yes, and I think that we can't have this full conversation without making sure that our listeners truly understand this term of internalized weight bias. So I thought let's start there and then we'll keep running.
Sure. So I think the way that I typically describe it to my clients, for example, is that it's almost universally understood, at least by the people that would be listening to you and me talk, that weight bias is alive and well in our society. So it shows up in obvious ways by comments that people might say out loud, and then also less obvious ways by, for example, lack of size inclusive medical equipment or chairs at your doctor's office. There's just numerous ways that this shows up. The internalization of that is what I do a lot of work on in my clinical practice because over the time, when people are repeatedly outright told that their bodies are not acceptable as they are, and then subtly taught that their bodies are not okay by some of those things we just mentioned, like not having a chair that fits you in your doctor's office, you begin to believe that. You can't help it. It's not a weakness, it's not a personal failing. It's what our brains are designed to do. Our brains are designed to learn from our environment. That's how we survive. And so, unfortunately, our brains learn positive messages, but they also learn some of these more harmful things. And so, the internalization of weight bias occurs really slowly over time. It's not like someone wakes up one day and says, oh, yeah, I'm going to start believing all those bad things people tell me. It's just these tiny little things. You watch a movie as a kid, and the heroine is always this small bodied person, and the villain is always this large bodied person. What does that teach you when you're 6 years old? And so that just becomes a way that people begin to see themselves and think, boy, I am not as fill in the blank, smart or able to control myself, or I'm lazy. All these things that we know from research that physicians and other healthcare professionals tend to believe about people living with larger bodies.
Right. And would it be safe to say if somebody doesn't start to understand and have full knowledge of what this could be doing, how it could be working against them internally in their weight management journey, but also just in health in general, doing this uphill battle?
Of course. I just recently was on a podcast discussion with someone, and I said, I think people forget that we have one nervous system. And it's the same nervous system that responds to getting in a car accident as to threats that are interpersonal. If someone came up and threatened you, threatened to steal your purse, you would have a nervous system response. And that nervous system is the same one that responds when you or I tell myself, I'm such a lazy fill in the blank bad thing. Like our nervous system responds to that like it's a threat because it is a threat. And so we have this sort of chronic nervous system activation that occurs without us even knowing that we're sort of triggering it over and over and over again. So yes, when you say, does this impact our weight management journeys? How could it not? I mean, we're sort of chronically
Yes.
activating our stress response. We have one nervous system, the same one that responds to all the threats we face in real life, and then the ones that are in our own thinking too.
Yes, and this is where I love that listeners can just be a fly on the wall and hear you speak over this and start to really understand. If you hear nothing else, the therapy piece has to be a piece of this puzzle. And I need people to get over whatever they need to get over to start asking for that help. And this is where your talk, you're so relatable. And I feel like everyone's initial thought is, thank you. You get
Aw.
me. Like, somebody gets me. Somebody
Yeah.
understands it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean,
oh,
listening is a superpower, and that's one of my superpowers. And luckily, I've been working with clients for a long time now. And so, what an honor. I mean, I'm not literally giving you anything that my clients haven't taught me. We've learned together over the years. And so, I think it's a gift to keep this conversation going.
oh, yes, I love how you just stated that. I agree. It is such a gift. And I think that this would be how your talk went, what we carry, and that you
Mhm.
unpack this bag. And this is what I want to go into. But this is probably, again, all those conversations with clients, and you've done this amazing job of bringing it into a condensed version where you can talk about it in an hour's time. So,
Mhm.
if you don't mind, I would like to summarize a little bit with you today,
Sure.
throw out some sentences that came from your mouth, and then you take a deeper dive with it. Okay. So, one of the first things that you said was, it doesn't matter what we weigh. What matters is what's weighing us down. So, I'm just
Mhm.
going to throw that in your court for a second. And just when you look at a client across from you, what you see.
Oh, it gives me goosebumps actually to think about it because almost always clients come in with something around their weight wanting to work on. And sometimes that's weight loss, sometimes that's body neutrality or acceptance, sometimes that's managing their relationship with food. But I think we can't live in this society without it all coming back at some point to this number or this ideal or this comparison. And I try really, really hard to honor that people can have weight goals. I understand why people might have a weight goal. And yet, the much bigger issue is all of the internalized weight bias, all of the harm that has been inflicted upon people who have struggled with weight. That is doing the most damage in most cases. And really, I think, like we were just talking about, if someone wants to work on managing weight for health reasons, whatever their reason, quite honestly, it just seems like an incomplete process to only focus on the scale if we don't focus on the pain that people actually live with. And most of the time, the pain is emotional or psychological,
Right.
related to just their experience in this world.
Oh my goodness, I agree. It's interesting how you're saying this too, because from the dietitian standpoint and doing outpatient and walking people over to the scale, because that's how the process went in our facility, my hate of the scale for individuals became a smashing of scales. And then I did need to rein that back to, okay, I see that they exist in society. There's a place for them. To your point, we've got to focus on this other side, and then the weight loss becomes the side benefit. Because normally when we get internally healthy, our external follows.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I try really hard to walk that line because I do respect that people could have meaningful weight change goals that
Mhm.
matter to them
Oh, yeah.
for a variety of reasons. And so I don't want to only talk about loving our bodies just as they are with, because then people feel like a failure if they want to change their weight. It's like
Yes.
this constant battle. And why? Why does it have to be so complicated?
You're
Yeah.
so right, though. Yes.
Oh.
Which brings up this next topic point of just pressure. And you
Mhm.
had even said, as if healing and growth has a deadline. Even just hearing you talk, pressure comes out immediately for individuals. And so go into that. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I think there's so many ways pressure shows up in our weight journey. There's the pressure to fit in, number one, which starts when we're young and in that adolescent phase, which is where so many people have started their real struggles with weight or with the weight bias stuff, bullying, teasing. I mean, weight-based bullying is the number one cause of bullying right now among adolescents. And unfortunately, as you probably know, that persists into adulthood, and there are no federal regulations to say that it is not okay to stigmatize or have prejudice actions and things against people because of their weight. So there's no federal regulation that prevents us from discrimination. That's the word, from weight-based discrimination. So that is like a perpetual thing. So it starts with the pressure to fit in. Then we figure out, like, well, how do I fit in? I fit in by losing weight. And so then how do I lose weight? Well, I lose weight by counting my calories and by burning more calories, because of course we're all told that all we have to do is eat less and move more. And then the pressure becomes, well, I need to fit in by this date. whether it's a graduation or a prom or a wedding or a bar mitzvah or a whatever it is down the line.
Yeah.
And so then we set deadlines for ourselves. And the new year is about to come up. We're recording this in November. New Year is always a time when people are feeling the pressure. Did I make the progress in 2025 that I thought I should, or that I told myself I was going to? And if not, then do I try to make it in the next 6 weeks, or do I just say to heck with it all and I'll start on January 1st? I mean,
The mind
always a
games.
deadline. And it makes us crazy. And the amount of time and energy people have spent, me too, by the way, sort of in that loop is just so damaging for people. And there's
Mhm.
no end. That's why I tried to say very explicitly, growth and healing have no deadline. If we stay focused on that, all the pressure changes. But it's really hard to keep level setting at that when it feels like, well, sure, I'll work on healing my relationship with my body once I've lost the weight. And the weight loss always has a deadline, and it's always last month or
Right. And
last.
this is where I feel like coaching and therapy is so important to have that external person keep feeding you those thoughts because the second we step back out into society, we're fed the exact opposite again. So
Yes, exactly.
there's this book of shoulds that you unpacked, and that it was written that we all have these shoulds hanging up over us from diets or doctors, experts, even family members within the home, Hollywood, whatever magazines we had sitting around when we were young. It
Yes.
starts to feel like we're a little doomed from the start. Not, this is inspirational, listeners, we promise,
Yes.
but we got a lot to unpack.
Yes.
So the book of shoulds for you, what comes up first? What's your most major thing that you feel like you're talking about with clients?
I should be better. I
Mm,
should be, and I say be intentionally because I
mm,
think a lot of times people will say, I need to do better. I need to eat better. I need to exercise more. I need to fill in the blank with their version of how to lose weight. But I see through that, I hear through that.
mm.
And I think what you're basically telling yourself is that I'm not good enough as I am. And I need to be better because there's something inherently wrong with me as I am.
Yeah.
And I just think that's such a shaky foundation from which to try to start actual lifestyle adjustments. It's only when people, I have found in my clinical practice, when people start to think, wait, I am worth taking out for a walk today because it's a nice day
Mm,
out,
mm.
when they walk out the door.
So
Not
good.
because some trainer somewhere along the way said they have to go for a walk and it has to be 30 minutes and it has to be at this intensity and they have to monitor every step and they have to wear their running shoes and when people say, "Oh, my back feels a little tight. I'd like to go do yoga so I feel better."
Yes.
And people go do yoga.
Ah, yes. In that magical shift of how and when that happens, I wish we could box it up and tie it in a bow because you can't just hand it to somebody. They have to discover it on their own.
Yes. It's about initiating things, but it's also about continuing things. So I will
Mm,
have clients that are engaged in some workout program and it hurts them. And they're like, well, I should keep going because that's the only way to burn the calories. I think about how many ways that we devalue our own body's needs and our
mhm.
own psychology needs because of these shoulds. And when we start to tune into like what actually works for me in my life, what feels good in my body, what we find is that it's very rarely one thing our whole lives.
Oh,
It
absolutely. Which
evolves.
is the hard piece. We think we get it figured out and then we need to figure it out again.
Exactly. It's the
Yeah.
hard piece or the beautiful piece.
Yeah.
Depends on the view you take of it,
Yes,
you know?
always.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and I think this is an interesting topic, even in this world of the perimenopause, menopause talks, because if you're out there on YouTube, and I agree, women need the resistance training and the muscle building, but it almost starts to make some people stop doing the walking or stop doing the things that feels really good to their body because they don't feel like it fits this perimenopause phase. And it's like, hang on, we still need to listen to our bodies. We still
Yes.
need to ask, what do I need today? Or
That is the
shoulds.
through line. I have never, ever, ever heard of a client that says, oh, I figured out the exact right insult to make myself do this thing. But I have many times heard people say, I actually thought, what would feel good to me right now? And then I went and did the thing because maybe I thought I was going to go do a spin glass. But what I really wanted is to be outside because it's a lovely blue sky day and I felt like my mood was a little low. And so I did that instead. And now I feel so much better. It's amazing when people feel like they have the space to tune in, you know.
Right. And then it's just helping individuals believe that that's actually going to make a difference. Like, I think they can even get that glimpse of that did work. I like that. But then there's this hard stop of that won't actually get me into that next whatever I want for my body or health phase. So it's just it's a journey. It takes one little
Well,
piece falling into place.
and I always say, I mean, especially if we're talking about the exercise fitness world, I
Hmm.
always say as much as we can disconnect that from weight, the better. Not because it doesn't matter ever, it can, but because we have much more very clear data that movement helps our mental health, period. Universally, when we do
Hmm.
movement that fits our needs and is not dangerous to our bodies, it makes people feel better. It is better in many cases than many medications for anxiety and depression, consistent, regular movement. It's a little less consistent in terms of understanding how it affects weight loss, good for
Right.
weight maintenance, a little sketchy on the weight loss thing. And so I say, if you're acting based on science, then let's think about exercise for our mental health because it will work every time.
Mm,
Every time. And so when you get in that place of like, will this even matter? Will this even work? Depends on
yes.
the outcome you're looking at. And if you look at the outcomes that are going to make you feel better, it's going to work every time, number one. And number two, we also know that when people's mood and anxiety improve, it's easier to manage weight.
A beautiful ripple of that. I want like the prescription pad to be handed to individuals to be like first movement. Start
First
there.
movement, yes, but
Hmm.
for mental health. And also, if people are moving for mental health, they're much less likely to abuse their bodies. If
Hmm.
we're moving to burn a certain number of calories in a certain amount of time, then we push
Hmm.
ourselves too hard. We run the risk of injuring ourselves sometimes. But if we move because we want to feel better, it just becomes so much easier.
I saw you
Yeah.
liked yoga as well. I love yoga. It was a later in life thing that came, but there's so many times that I just show up to the yoga mat and lay there for a minute and I'm just so happy I made it to the mat and I'm just going to lay
Yes.
here for a second and not
Yes.
worry about, yes, like a
Yes.
need met and it brings me back every time.
Every time. The best dose response thing we have
Mm.
makes
Mm.
people feel better.
That's so good. I feel like I'm like
Mhm.
rushing us along because I could stick on every topic for
I know.
an hour. I loved the self-doubt and covered in labels, and you were sticky noting yourself even with labels. I can't tell you enough how many conversations with clients we're doing of removing labels, that it's just back to your piece that life has given us these labels all along. How do you slowly pull those sticky notes off your clients?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I really think that honestly, figuring out what labels have stuck is one of the hardest parts because the
Mm.
world hurls lots of them at us. And every person who has struggled with weight has probably heard a version of every label there could be. Some of them stick for some people and not so much for others. So I think it's a little bit of an inner journey. This is why with each individual client, it's an inner process of trying to figure out what are the things that particularly stick.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's based on family history. What did my mom used to say to me, or what did my coach or my gym teacher say to me, or my sibling? What was the hot button issue for me? That's sometimes the one that will stick. Sometimes it's loss. So like if people identified one way for a part of their lives, like I have a lot of clients that have maybe been athletes all through college or something, and then suddenly menopause and you've had a kid and your body's really different. And now there's this big gap because the label you used to have for yourself felt really good. And now I don't know what exactly I am. And so refiguring that process out is a whole thing. So first I really work with people to sort of figure out like what are the labels that you keep circling around that sting. And then we obviously do all kinds of work around that. Do we look at where they came from? Do we look at ways of trying to figure out why do we keep that label? What part of us believes it?
Right.
Why does that part believe it? What are the data that say that that's right? Because it's almost never there. So we sort of teach people to be like a scientist and an attorney of their own thoughts. So
Good.
be curious about it. Why is it like that? Be curious like a scientist would, and then be an attorney. Like, would that thought hold up in court? So,
Mm,
for example, a client of mine might be a mom of two or dad of two, very successful in their career, contributing member of their community, a great parent, a great family member, a great daughter or son or whatever. And yet their constant internal thoughts are like, I'm a lazy failure.
yeah. Yes.
And I'm like,
You're like, what?
if you were an attorney and you put that on trial, could you actually convince us that that's true?
Yeah.
And so that's a silly little way, but it starts to really have people think and challenge those thoughts rather than just let them wash over us unabated.
If you're picturing a listener going, this is so interesting, I'd like to start even before I get myself into therapy, is this a good journaling exercise? Is to pull some what we think are hot buttons? I guess we almost need that person across from us to really help because sometimes we can't see what we can't see out of ourselves. But
I think that's the beauty of health coaching or therapy. It's like you have a mirror there that isn't as invested in that particular thought and
right.
will sort of look at you with like my clients will literally laugh at me. They'll say, I can like read your mind because they'll say something and I'm like, I don't have to
Like,
say anything. And they're like, oh, wait, maybe that's an old way of thinking. Okay, I'll tell you a little story. This is a true story. When I was growing up, I lived in rural Maine. And my friend lived 5 houses down from me. But in rural Maine, 5 houses away is actually quite a distance
hmm,
because it's not like where I live now in Washington, D.C. And there was, I'm not kidding, a cornfield between my house and her house. And there's no sidewalks on the roads that I grew up on. So we would get to each other's houses via the cornfield. There was a trail through the cornfield that we would go. And I sometimes ask people to think about their brains a little bit like that cornfield. Like there's a well-worn path from point A to point B. I get out of the shower and I see myself naked in the mirror and I think I'm fat and disgusting. Point A to point B. It's a well-worn path. You've said it to yourself for 25 years,
hmm,
every single morning. It's easy to stay on that path. Doesn't feel good, but it's familiar. It's smooth sailing. The process of a therapeutic alliance, I always think of is like, we're still going to go through the cornfield. We're just going to carve a different path. We're going to get a different path going. And at the beginning, if you actually, maybe people listening have been city people and have never actually walked through a cornfield, it's actually pretty hard. It's kind of like you really got to shove stuff out of the way.
yeah,
And you walk through a different path and you're like, why am I doing this? This is so hard and annoying and I'm getting scratched and I don't like it. It's easier to just go on the other one. But you
yeah,
can do it. And if you keep forcing yourself to walk that other path, eventually that one gets worn too. And so I think part of the therapeutic process is encouraging people to just tread a new path, as uncomfortable as it might be, and to keep at it over and over and over again, because they're worth trying to find a new path. And once you practice that new path, it doesn't mean that the other one disappears. Just means that when you find yourself on that first one, it's like, oh, right. There's that other one too. I know how to do this differently. I know how to talk to myself differently. I know how to think differently about my body. And that is really powerful when you have more choice instead of feeling like there's only one option.
absolutely. I love that you pointed that out as well as highlighted the old path doesn't go away. Is just the resetting of expectations. Again, social media or news, when it's like change a habit in 30 days, that very much
Oh,
instills this thought that in 30 days I'm a whole new person and the other path disappeared.
right.
But if we just have a different expectation, I love your
Mhm.
toothpaste analogy. Yes, then it's our choice. And that's very empowering.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's all about empowerment.
Yes. I do want to talk about this too. I think this kind of goes into your lock it down moment or the willpower and how willpower is a trap because I'm picturing the white knuckling or the walking through the corn. It's tough and how people feel like everything has to be that hard in order to get any results on the other side.
Mhm.
Do you feel like we need to white knuckle to get to results?
Oh my gosh. So first of all, whenever someone says something like that to me, I always say, think about what results means.
Mm,
Because if what you're actually saying is, do I need to over restrict my food intake to lose weight? That's
mm,
usually what people are saying. Then I say, we need to keep working on building a new path. What is the actual goal? Is the actual goal to lose as much weight as possible? Or is the actual goal to feel better, to move better, to maybe change your weight because of health outcomes, whatever it is? So, like redefining what results means is number one. Number two, there is no end to growth and healing. And so, if the results that we're actually looking for is healing our relationship with our bodies, healing our relationship with food, healing our relationship with our self image or whatever that is, again, there's no timeline here, there's no end. Okay, I'll give you another analogy. I seem to be the queen of those today. One of the things I'll often say when I'm meeting a new client is I don't really want you to think of me like a psychologist to help you with weight. I want you to think of me like you might think of your dentist. And I don't mean like, because some people are scared of the dentist. I don't mean it like that. What I mean is, if you're lucky, you have your teeth your whole life. And you need a partner to help you manage the health and well-being of your teeth your whole life. It doesn't mean that you're at your dentist having a root canal every week. Maybe sometimes you chip a tooth and you need to go more often. Maybe sometimes you're doing everything right and you have a cavity and you need to go more often. Maybe sometimes you have gum disease because of a medication that you're on and you need to go more often. And then other times things are going great and you just check in every now and then for a cleaning and you kind of move on with your day. I always think of our role in this as long term, which means you don't willpower your way through dental health. You just sort of monitor it and do your best and keep working at it for the rest of your life. That's what I want people to think of around the weight stuff. It's like, we're just going to monitor it, we're going to do our best, and we're going to continue to work at it in a way that feels sustainable and healthy our whole lives, because there's no end. Even if you lose weight, you still have to monitor it and manage it. Weight is like a biological thing, just like our dental health. It's not something
That's
you
an
just
expectation
fix and
thing
be
too.
done, you know?
Right. Right. But
Yeah,
again, an expectation feeling of, I would say most individuals feel like when I hit my goal weight, I have done it. I have
right,
succeeded. And then it's
right,
probably scary to hear, wait, there's still this whole you have to maintain and sustain. And
right. Which is the hard
yeah,
part.
which is why
For
the work has to be done during the process.
Yes, yes. But I think if it's scary for people to think this is my long-term job, then there's something still off about the
Mhm.
approach that's being taken.
Agreed. Hmm.
Because once we let go of fear, like, oh my gosh, I have to do this for the rest of my life, and move to a place of this is just how I live. I feel like it's important to take care of my body. This is how I can reasonably do it with all my constraints in my environment and in my psychology and in my finances and in my support network, then I'm doing the best I can, period. And sometimes that'll be easier and sometimes that'll be harder, and we need to adjust and we need to make changes. Weight is just a thing in our lives that we have to manage, like dental health, just a
I
thing, you
love that.
know?
I love that. Yes,
Yeah.
analogy. We always talk in my community about meeting our future 80-year-old self and would we be thanking ourselves? And then in reverse of that, I always feel like anything I start now, would I be still doing it as an 80-year-old? And if the answer isn't a yes, then back to your fear point. If there's like this, "Ugh, that feels too hard to do that forever," then we need to recheck the idea, the intention.
Yes.
So everybody has an opinion. I love this. And there's this, it gets loud in our environments. And how do we block that a little? How do we quiet the loud?
Mm. Well, I don't know how to quiet the loud because I'm unsuccessful at making other people stop doing those things. But what I can do is I ask people to just remember that we live in this sort of chronic talking environment where, I mean, the social media thing is it's like out of control in some cases, where the number of opinions, and I have unbelievably well-educated, well-intentioned clients who will come to me and be like, well, I saw this thing on whatever social media platform, and it's for this patch that does X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, what? What? But I get it. It's like marketing really works. Again, our brains are designed to learn from the environment in which we're in. And if we spend a lot of time on an environment that is pushing a bunch of ideas, then we learn from that. And we don't always learn the true information. So everyone has an opinion starts from the time we're young when our mom or dad or grandparent tells us, are you sure you want to eat that? Or should you eat that? Or why don't you eat this instead? Or this after that? Or there's starving children and you got to clean your plate. And all the opinions start really, really early. And then they persist into adulthood when healthcare professionals tell us things like, well, what worked for me was X, or what I think you should try now is Y, with no precision that really recognizes what would work for this individual person, varies by day, truthfully, right?
Right.
And I get it because it's healthcare professionals in general can't work like that, right? We have to sort of put people in buckets and say, like, well, to the best of our know, this is what's going to help you. But
Mhm.
this is where it calls on the person to sort of drown out, like, okay, what I've been told will work for me is burning X number of calories over X amount of time. But if my body is screaming at me that I don't want to do that, and what I'm at risk of doing is just saying, to heck with it all, I'm not exercising anymore because it hurts, then
Mhm.
like let our own voice of reason stand up and have a place in the room. Let our own voice drown out some of the things of the, because it's just, everyone has an opinion. It's just more shoulds just coming at
Mhm.
us from other sources.
And another beautiful example of why I think therapy is so important is because I can already tell you I'd have people going, I hear you that I need to listen to my internal voice more. I don't trust it. So I can do the work of trying to listen, but if I don't trust it in the first place, then how do I make
Right.
these decisions? And that's where I know you would say this too, like we have to pull in external help. If that is shouting loud and clear at you that it's you don't trust, we got to build the trust, right? And
Yes.
it takes time.
Well, and I would argue this goes back to the sticky notes, because what I would say is that there's probably a hot point there about self-integrity or self-trust that we need to work on that is much, much bigger than will I not eat after 8 p.m. or whatever, some arbitrary thing. It's a much deeper lack of self-trust that probably shows up in relationships, probably shows up when it's time to advocate for a promotion at work. It probably shows up in hard conversations with your spouse or your friends. So there's lots of ways that that same nugget shows up in our lives. And what we tend to focus on is, oh, I told myself I was going to stop eating at 8 and then I ate at 10 p.m. And so therefore I can't trust myself anymore. And I'm like, that is way low on the priority list. Let's look at ways that lacking in self-trust has really affected your life. And that's the hard work because
So
it's usually
good.
much deeper than chips at 10 p.m.
Oh, 100%. Yes. It's almost the barrier that we let some of those not as important topics buzz around in our brain. It keeps us stuck and not doing the deep work.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I do want to say this. I feel like you talked about grief. You talked about so much that we're not going to get around to today, but I want to highlight how you talk about unpacking your bag or all these topics that Dr. Pashby and I are talking about. You have to figure this out at some point, and that it's not because the body was changed at the end of the day once you do all of this unpacking, but it's because you set down everything that was never yours to be carried in the first place. And I had chills when you said, I just got chills again in saying it. And you go into shame, anger, sadness, guilt, perfectionism, gosh, which is why I have the direction, not perfection. Like that perfectionism, I feel like kills so much joy in a journey. I don't know
Mhm.
any other little follow-up thoughts around the bag that you unpacked and
Yeah. So if people are watching this and haven't seen the original talk, please go back
Mhm.
and watch it because I have had such amazing feedback from people about it. And it's been really, really moving. And I mean, really early in my career, I realized I have this unbelievable position in life where I get to do this work that I cannot believe I get to do. I pinch myself thinking, how did this happen? And I have an immense responsibility because once we know things, I have this idea that I have this responsibility to share things with other people. But I'm like, I'm only one person and I can't help more than the people I can see in my office, right? I'm sitting in
Right.
my office right now looking at the chair next to me. I'm like, there's literally like one person at a time. Maybe if I'm lucky, I have a group of 6 people in my room. And it feels like such a drop in the bucket when I know how many people are struggling with weight. And so the talk like this and being able to give them messages like, We are all burdened by this shared experience if you struggle with weight, and that maybe you don't have to continue to move forward in your life carrying all this with you, independent of whether you lose weight or not. What if we could free ourselves from the psychological weight that we carry, which is so much heavier than any number of fat cells in our body? That's my contribution. So if I can change one person's future by sharing this talk, then I've succeeded. But imagine helping thousands of people. It's beyond my wildest dreams. And so
Yes.
my hope when people hear this is that they get goosebumps and they start to reflect on their own lives and they think to themselves, why am I carrying this? What if there's a way to live differently? What if there is? And then suddenly they go in search of the what if.
Right. They get that little glimpse of hope that something like that's available to me, that
Yeah.
I can feel that way. And oh, you were brilliant. I really feel like it was such well-deserved recognition that came from it. And it's literally like you can't help but not share it with the next person because it's that good. And even it, when you say I'd love to reach more people, like you reached my whole community already, and we've taken your topics into deep dives. I just feel like this is that little button, that go button that goes, take the next step, take the next step. You're going to get to the next layer of success for yourself, for your own, however you have defined success in your life.
Yeah.
And so, those individuals who are ready to be less than a fly on the wall and reach out to you, where are the best places to find you?
My website is all the emails through the website come directly to me. So that's the easiest way. But I'm on social too. I am on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, of course. I have a Facebook page. And I just created a TikTok account. I have not posted anything yet because I'm still a lurker there. So we'll see what happens with that. But like dipping my toe in and deciding. But my
Yes.
website is best. Yeah. I'm sure you'll link it in your show notes. So
No, I will, and good job on still like venturing out. It's
God,
overwhelming.
it's
And
the
I always
story.
talk about curating our social media because wouldn't it be amazing, listeners, if your social media, when you pulled up Instagram, it was Dr. Pashby giving a talk like this? Like, if we can surround ourselves by that goodness, it makes it so much easier to stay our own course. And
Yes. And that's why I
yes.
do so much of the work I do training physicians and other allied health professionals, because I realized really early on, I can do all of this work with my client, and then they step into an office of someone else and hear the exact opposite. And it's so damaging. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, this is not enough. I need to do something else from like, I need a top-down approach too. So
Yes.
I literally
Yes.
travel all over the world teaching health professionals how to interact with people in a more trauma-informed, weight neutral way. And oh
Thank
my,
you for that work.
yes.
Yes, I have experienced the unraveling. And
Oh,
it's just, oh, I know.
it's so
And I
painful.
do this with my interviews, but I would love for you to wrap your arms around our community with kind of a last thought of, if you heard nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this today, what do you hope and pray that somebody does take away?
That your mental health matters as much or more than any number on the scale, that the psychological impact of living with higher weight or living with weight struggles is real. And it's something that can be managed and treated, and you can feel better. And I just want people to remember that they can feel better whether or not the scale moves,
Mm,
because we only have this one life. We're all
mm,
living it right now.
right. And to feel better would trump a scale number for a lot of individuals, especially depending on what season of life somebody's in. They're just so
That's
ready to feel better.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
And sometimes that makes it possible to change the scale, and
I think it almost always makes it possible,
yeah,
but they don't believe that yet, right?
I
You guys start.
know. Yes, yes.
Yes. Oh, we were so blessed to have you with us today. Thank you again for your time, your encouragement, your wisdom, and you're welcome back anytime.
Yes, thank you so much.